Ukrainian President Zelensky has confirmed that the counteroffensive in Ukraine has begun. So no more like, when's it coming? Is this it? Not quite sure, like a marriage proposal. We are getting confirmation that we can call it, guys. We can call it. But we are being warned by the Western media to lower our expectations in the West for this sort of big push to victory, because victory is as yet undefined. Look at how CNN tells us about this counteroffensive. Like, they are confirming with the headline that it's here, but they're saying the very idea of it is misleading, given the impression that there was discrete before and after periods of the campaign, meaning like whatever comes after this, lower your expectations. They say in reality, Ukraine has been softening up Russian forces for months and is already engaged in efforts to recapture territory. What's more, as Ukrainians are keen to emphasize, the actions of their armed forces are in response to an invasion. That's why Ukrainian officials like to stress, as Zelensky did over the weekend, that their actions should be seen as defensive. Well, okay.
Wait, what?
I have a lot of problems with this.
Yeah.
No one should read this and be like, okay, that's how the world is. First of all, softening up. I don't know if Grim is with us. Grim is a veteran, one of our producers on this show. Is that a real battle tactic?
Soften them up? Yeah. So
I mean, it sounds more like a salesperson tactic than a battlefield tactic.
Right. I softened them up. I softened them up with some HIMARS weapons. And it's contradictory, because what the Wall Street Journal is reporting this morning is the opposite of that, which is Ukraine says they've made some advancements, but as they attack and hit certain Russian soldiers, they are stunned at how quickly those soldiers then are replenished. This is in the Wall Street Journal this morning. So they might hit certain targets, might hit certain Russian targets, and then as soon as they've hit them, they are replenished with new troops. They're right there to take the spot. And if they do it again, they're right there again, a third time, like over and over again. And they just can't, they don't have the forces to overwhelm them.
Okay. Grim says this is actually a battle tactic. So,
yeah.
Okay.
Well, I had an old sociology professor that like he was keen to point out that like propaganda, how when the enemy surprises you, it's a surprise, or it's an ambush, but when you surprise them, it's a surprise attack. You know, it's that kind of mentality.
Right.
They're using the words very specifically to convey the same exact situation, but from a different paradigm.
Okay, the way Grim is describing it here is that it's airstrikes, which is exactly what Ukraine has been doing. Airstrikes in certain regions to sort of soften them up before ground troops go in, which is true. But I think it's, even if that's true, if that's a valid tactic, fine. But this idea that CNN has told us that we should only see them as defensive means they don't expect to push the battle lines. Now, I think it's important to continue to look at this map. Let's look again at the map of the battlegrounds here. This comes from Russian news outlet RIA, since the West really doesn't give us a very clear picture of this very often. Those of you who watch the Western media, I wonder if you, like me, are struck with how little we get to see the battleground and what is actually, like, we get to see plenty of like Zelensky hugging celebrities, but do we really see what we're fighting for? So again, the red here is the territory that Russia has taken over since last March of 2022. And the area that is red and dark gray is the area that has voted to be inside of Russia, that asked Russia to invade. And now Russia is continuing to try to get the red borders over to that full gray spot, right? So if we are only supposed to see this as defensive, I mean, the West would like us to think that Ukraine can turn those red areas back to this tan cream color. Can we just leave the map up for a little bit longer? That's what the map would like, or that's what the West would like us to think with a counteroffensive, is that, okay, we've taken a deep breath, we're now going to push that back and they'll be gone, right? That does not seem possible when you look at this map. And so now with them saying, only think of this as defensive, we're sort of being softened up as a public to think that boundary is not going to change.
What's interesting about that map, that's the Russian map here. I just want to show you, if we can take this, Philip. This is the Ukrainian. Of course, this was developed by Ukrainian software engineers. So this is a Ukrainian map. And so I don't know if we can kind of go back and forth between the difference here. And actually, surprisingly, the Ukrainian map
has more Russian territory.
Has more red, and which is actually really surprising in this Ukrainian map versus the Russian map. The Russian map actually has less red. Isn't that interesting?
Yes.
Because for so long, this live view map has had more Ukrainian advancements and more Ukrainian territory painted here on this live view map that's been out. Again, a Ukrainian software developed this. So this is, again, pro-Ukrainian software. But again, pretty similar, although you can see more red on the top.
Which is interesting because I also follow the Financial Times map, and they put Crimea as contested territory. You can see the Russian map does not. Here, it also seems like the Ukrainian map is admitting that that is Russian territory. So again, what we're looking at is what are we being asked to believe as a public, right? I'm not a military expert. I can't tell you what's actually going to happen. I just want to know what we're being invited to believe. And so if we were told there's going to be a counteroffensive and we in the West need to support that with money and weapons and, signing off on other people's death certificates, then we need to understand what the goal is. And if the goal now is no longer to move that territory red, then what is it? That's not a rhetorical question. What do you think we are being asked?
If it's no longer to move it red.
And CNN, and the West is telling us it's only defensive. So we're not really the counter offense is defensive. What the heck does that mean?
Spring defensive is what? It's not the spring offensive.
Yeah, it's a spring defense. But if the defense includes retaking, I guess that's the idea, right? We're going to retake all of this territory. We're going to retake Crimea in a defensive move.
But they know they can't, so they're not. So we're being led around by the nose.
Right, we're being
Clearly.
told this is why we need to funnel billions of dollars of weapons, and this is why we need to send young Ukrainians to their death.
Right.
So that NATO can spin this yarn that it's defensive. And at the heart of it, an entire generation of young Ukrainian men and middle-aged Ukrainian men have been wiped out. Just wiped out.
I mean,
so just throw them, keep throwing them in the meat grinder. I mean, if you want to literally destroy an entire population, that's exactly what you're doing because NATO wants you to do it.
Yeah.
And all the billions and weapons we've already sent them couldn't hold one of those areas yet? And they think they're going to take them back?
Well, can we have a discussion about how serious the leadership in Ukraine is about this then? Because you would think that if you are the recipient of billions of dollars in money and aid from the West and you've promised a big counteroffensive, maybe you'd be busy just giving it your all with your military, putting all of your focus in succeeding, right? That's not what Zelensky is doing. Instead, I guess he thinks that his military has that covered, so he hosted a dinner party over the weekend for Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau. Now, this was what we're told, a surprise visit. Now, if you've been watching this show for the last couple of weeks, how Justin Trudeau is sort of on a tour to tell other countries how to be better about LGBTQIA+ laws and legislation. So we thought, he's going to Ukraine. Surely he's going to give him a lecture about gay rights, right? Because Ukraine is not the freest place for gay people or trans people. In fact, gay marriage is not allowed there. Homosexuality is legal, but for sure, right? This is what Trudeau does. Because last week, Trudeau met with Polish Prime Minister Mateusz Morawiecki, and he lectured him about gay rights in Poland. Do you recall this?
Mm-hmm. He loves to tell people about gay rights.
About a month earlier,
democracy.
he did the same thing to Italian Prime Minister Giorgia Meloni, which earned him this reputation in the press. They called him a buffoon. This buffoon wants to give us a lecture. Earning him this meme.
There he was in the blackface, yeah.
Yeah, from Giorgia Meloni. And when the press pushed him on, maybe shouldn't West explain gay rights to the rest of the world? Maybe they are not stupid and they sort of figure it out on their own, based on their own culture and laws and legislation. He gave us this declarative statement that he will not apologize for pushing this agenda. Declarative.
I will never apologize for standing up for an LGBTQ2+ kids' rights.
Okay.
Thank goodness.
So declarative.
Yeah, we got rolls right off the tongue.
Yes, it does. So you would think that Zelensky would get a lecture about that too, right? He did not. Instead, we got the two of these men meeting in Canada and Ukraine. They call it a surprise visit, but it is about as highly produced as the Academy Awards. I'm going to play you the first half, and then I'm just going to go ahead and talk over it because I mean, we could play a Scrabble game with all the words that they're going to say to each other, like West, support.
So this is in Ukraine.
This is in Kiev.
This is in Kiev,
this is the 2.5 minute. It really does play out. Like the music is, like I said, the music feels like this is a romantic comedy that's starring, Meg Ryan. Like I literally expect her to like walk out with a dog leash and a tissue, and like drop her purse
and like Tom
in the
Hanks.
middle of this tulip field. Watch.
Two men become lovers. Here's the meeting. Okay, pull it
I've
in.
missed you so much.
You wore your best t-shirt for me. Does that pocket have a zipper on the side? What do you keep in that little tiny Ukraine pocket? What do you keep in that little pocket? A tissue from when you... Do I hear a harp?
Yes.
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 We're really thankful for everything you did for us, for our people, refugees, and for our army. I appreciate your own support. Thank you so much. People of Canada, and of course to all your team, to the government and parliament. Really, it's so necessary help. You are with us from first days of full-scale war. Thank you very much. And we really are ready to do what we can. But of course, with these wildfires, we are ready to help Canadians. I know that you have good partners in it, and your people, and so we will be there.
So he's helping offering to help with the wildfires. Like we are, losing a lot of people here to this war that we refuse to stop.
So we'll send all of our extra firefighters to Canada to help you with your wildfires.
Yeah, Oh, don't you have a counteroffensive? Yeah, we do have that, but we'll help you however we want. And it's like I said, so highly produced. You see, they're gonna chat, and then you're gonna get some, like Justin Trudeau nodding seriously kind of footage. This just goes on and on. There it is. This is my favorite serious nodding.
My favorite was the harp.
Are they gonna? Yeah, the harp. Are they going to go out in the streets and grab people and say, "Hey, we need you to fight fires in Canada. Get in the truck. You're out of here."
Oh, I wonder.
No, but we got enough people for the front lines now. Now you're going to fight fires.
Right. See how many people would volunteer to go to Canada right now to fight fires. Like,
yeah.
We're gonna raise an army to go help you in Canada. The men in Ukraine be like, "Yeah, okay, I'll go."
I would rather do that.
I'd rather do
likely.
that. Chances are I might live.
Tattoos before they get in the plane.
Yeah.
Yeah. And again, when you see that kind of footage, you sort of, to me, I hearken back to my postmodernist theory classes, reading John Baudrillard, The Gulf War Did Not Exist, about how, I'm not actually saying the Gulf War didn't exist. His point was all wars in the future will be fought with propaganda. And we're here. This is it. That's what we're looking at. At the very least, even though Trudeau did no gay rights lecturing in Ukraine, he seemed to have improved his Ukrainian accent when he says Volodymyr. Watch when he tried that a couple months ago.
Trudeau, Prime Minister Sunak, President Zelensky, please go ahead. You're online.
Hello, Volodymyr. It's Rishi and Justin.
I'm going to speak in a Canadian version of Ukraine. It's hello, it's Justin.
Are you
Do you
2
understand?
years old?
When I talk like this, I sound more like you instead of how I normally speak. I love that clip.
Now, remember that call between those two dudes was calling Zelensky to console him over the missile that hit Poland.
Right.
When it was Ukraine that sent that missile into Poland.
Right.
But they still called him to console him, saying, "We're so sorry that happened not to you."
We're also really sorry about the dam that you guys just blew up. We're sorry that you did that. We're sorry that it killed so many people and it flooded all these villages. We're sorry for that. David, you were going to say something.
Yeah, I just want to say, like you said, the propaganda wars are here, but I believe, like, they made a conscious effort with, I believe it was Desert Storm after the first Iraq invasion, to not show soldiers coming home in caskets with the flags draped over them, because they knew that made people see the realities of war. So it started a long time ago that they started like making conscious decisions to keep out of sight, out of mind for us. We don't know what's going on over there, therefore we can't disagree with it.
Yeah,
you're right. But I think that the speed of video editing, the speed at which, like, can you imagine any other war having these kind of sizzle reels, I guess, for lack of a better term? Like, it's almost like, when you're in broadcast news, like your demo tape, the way it comes together just so beautifully in such short amount of time, inviting us to believe that we are watching the good guys, and you have a soundtrack to punctuate that.
Well, as we reported here last week on the show, the Ukrainian PR army, which is an actual legitimate thing, is going to great lengths to make sure that the news that you're being fed is propaganda, and it is being siphoned through a filter that is following one narrative, and you're being handed that on a plate.
Well, in doing video production, I understand that was all so staged that they would have had to been like, okay, we this is your mark, Justin. You're going to walk up, and Zelensky's going to be here. They're sitting there getting those instructions. They probably did a couple practice runs and all. Like, this is a production. That is not a random happenstance that they're like, hey, just turn on the cameras and let's follow these guys. That was very well coordinated.
Oh, absolutely. You could see when they sit down, they're like, now we're going to sit down. Zelensky, you're going to, profusely thank Justin Trudeau for all of the support from the West. Go. And I'm sure he did it at least 8 times. That was not a spontaneous, like, we're just going to have a talk about how grateful I am to the West.
Wonder if we can get our hands on the blooper reel, because
right. Now, not only did Canada follow up by seizing a Russian airplane that had been grounded in Canada due to sanctions, Canadian politicians posted this over the weekend. I'm going to say it's not the most impressive of planes to brag about seizing, but, they wanted to sort of punctuate it with, like, what we're doing. And this was followed up over the weekend by the U.S. committing to another $2.1 billion in weapons and aids for Ukraine on Friday, including the Patriot and Hawk air defense missiles, which is a nice big gift. But it could take some time to be delivered, as this anti-war piece points out, that the weapons being purchased here are under the Ukraine Security Assistance Initiative, or USIA, and weapons provided under that, the USIA, could take months or years to deliver, as they involve contracts that might need to be manufactured. So it's a super nice deal for weapons makers. It's not a super nice deal for this current counteroffensive, because they won't get it, right? So it's just another way that taxpayer dollars are being funneled into the private sector through weapons makers. And what's happening to those American weapons? Well, they're going to need to replace them, because Ukraine has lost almost all of the Bradley fighting vehicles in the Zaporizhia conflict just in the last 48 hours. This was originally reported by France Press news agency, but it's not easy to search now for obvious reasons, so I had to get it from the Russian site TASS. And Russia also says that it was able to fend off naval drone attacks on its fleet in the Black Sea. This is video that was released by the Russian Defense Ministry. They said there were no casualties and the ship didn't suffer any damage, but these were, what do they call it? Naval drones. Like boat drones.
Right.
So, if this is a true counteroffensive and not the PR hit that the West needs, no wonder that they're sending in Trudeau for photo ops.
Thank you so much for watching this segment here at Redacted. We are live every day at 4 p.m. Eastern Time, trying to share the stories that the mainstream media will not cover. You should also come over and join our community of Redacted Rebels over at redacted.inc. That's our private locals community where we can share exclusive content that we simply cannot share here on YouTube. Come over and join the rebellion together right now by going to redacted.inc. We'll see you next time.